Okay, it was January 2020, and David sent me a message in the morning, one of the early days of January, and he said, "Hey, I'd like you to listen to this podcast," and he sent me a link. And so on my walk to work that morning, I listened to this podcast. It was two nuns, and they were discussing their words of the year, what they had for 2019 and what they had for 2020. And they discussed how their words of the year changed their lives that year, and just had this nice little discussion about their word. I don't even remember what their words were, but I thought, okay, yeah, we can do that. And so we sat down. We spent some time talking about it and thinking about it, and then we sat down one time at dinner, and David said, "Have you decided on your word of the year?" And I said, "Yeah, I have." I had thought about it a lot. I'd thought of all these, lofty words and all of these things, but one little word just kind of kept coming back into my brain, and it seemed like, oh no, that's a really stupid word for the year. And then I would have, more thoughts, more words, and then it would still, that little word would kept coming back. So when we sat down to dinner that night, and he asked me, and I said, yes, I do have my word of the year, but you go first. And, he explained, as only a pastor can do, explained his word of the year, and he had chosen the word renew. And, all of that was going to encompass for that year is new decade and all of this, we're starting a new year. He was going to renew in many ways. And he said, okay, what's yours? And I said, well, mine's home. And I'll never forget the look he gave me. It was kind of like, are you crazy? Why do you choose a word like that? That's not even the kind of word that you choose. And I said, well, the reason I chose it is because we've moved back home to Brown County. We had lived 2 years in Bloomington, and we always knew that we'd be coming back home. But it was a necessary move for the time. And we had decided to come back to Brown County. So we were home. We had a new house. We had all kinds of plans for this new house. We were under construction during that time, getting things ready so we could even host visitors from out of town in a private area in the lower level of this house. We were planning on neighborhood dinners on Friday nights. We were planning to have our friends and family come and stay with us and enjoy Brown County like we've done for many, many years. We were planning to entertain. We were planning to, make this home a special place. And so that's the way I anticipated the word for the year to go. I had my plans. They were pretty well laid out. And you all know what happened in March. Our home became our office. It became my shop. We were under lockdown. It kind of became a prison in some ways. And it wasn't what I anticipated. We couldn't have our friends down from up north where we're from. We couldn't invite guests into our home. We couldn't have those dinners that we were planning for the neighborhood. Everything stopped. But my son came home. He and his girlfriend lived with us during the quarantine time. We were able to do some work on the place. We were able to sit out on the front deck and watch as people walked by and meet all our neighbors. We were able to walk the streets and meet other neighbors sitting on their front decks. So it was a good time. It was a time for home. Little did I know that we would sell that home all of a sudden. It just sort of happened, and that's a whole story in itself. But we sold it in October, and we moved to a condo in town, which was what we originally wanted anyway. So we traded one home for another home and a camper, which is a home away from home. And we continued on and made our home. I think it wasn't what I anticipated for my word for the year, but it was what it was. My granddaughter said in December of last year, she said to me, Mimi, I want you to choose a word like travel next year because she says, I've had enough of being home. And I said, yeah, we'll think about that. So we started a little earlier in 2020 thinking about the word for the year. Of course, we were in the height of the pandemic. We were in the height of a very contentious election season. Things were not seeming quite like we were on our feet, on our equilibrium. We were a little bit unsettled about what all was going on. And so I chose another word for this year. And of course, David has another great word. He had peace. And I said, okay, well, mine kind of goes with that. Mine's light. And I chose that for 2021. And just a few days after that choice or that selection of my word of the year, we saw what happened in January 6th. We saw the darkness that seemed to prevail in the pandemic, in the government, in all kinds of areas. It was very unsettling again. And I thought, oh gosh, I've done it again. I've chosen a word that's just I'm maybe not should do this anymore. But as I was thinking about it and processing it, I was thinking, okay, that's kind of a lofty word for this season. I can't change things. You can't even argue some of this with people because they'll say you're the dark side or whatever. So it was just such a frustrating time. And I finally found the scripture passage in Psalm 112, and I'm just gonna kind of pick and choose. The whole passage is really good, but beginning with verse 4, it said, "Light shines in the darkness for the godly. They are generous, compassionate, and righteous. They do not fear bad news. They confidently trust the Lord to care for them." That was verse 7. And then just a couple more lines from that psalm. They share freely. They give generously. They have honor. And I've kind of chosen that as what I am going to follow with my word light. Is I can't do everything. I can't shine light in all the dark corners of this world, but I can live generously and with compassion and with righteousness, and I can have honor. And so that's what my focus is for this second year of the pandemic, of my lessons and my lessons of word of the year.